everybody. Come join me as I travel through this land called creativity. It's a strange land. Why? Because it has no national anthem, it's got no flag, but it has more than 7 billion people living in it. And you are one of them. Well, I started the journey, I've already begun. And if you have been through the first part of the journey, you will recognize some of the features. As I go along, I'll try to make sense of the features so that you recognize it and you then know that you are a native of this land called creativity. In the first part of the journey, I touched on the whole entire subject of creativity and broken it down to a few parts. And one of the main parts is curiosity. If you go back to the first part of the journey, you will then see how there are different features and you will recognize how those features are within you. But today, I want to go back a little bit. Go back to what happens before you become curious. What happens is you notice this thing called noticing. Yes, it's a very random thing. It is a split-second thing, but it is actually not random and it's actually not really split-second. To you, it seems so. When do you notice? Do you realize that you're the only one who noticed it? Before the curiosity sets in, you notice. And you notice things that are important to you. How do you notice? Because you carry a lot of interest in that particular subject. If you're a botanist, you will notice something about plants. Only you would notice it unless there is another person who's very interested in plants. And if you are somebody who loves motorbikes, very passionate about how motorbikes are made, and you follow a certain brand, and you would be the one who would notice something odd that's out there. The act of noticing, it happens when you are looking at something, but it also happens inside your brain. Some fact will disturb you. You will notice something. Investigators have this. I'm sure you've read Sherlock Holmes. Well, he notices a lot of things visually as well as inside his head. It's about connecting the dots, and that is an aspect of creativity as well. So this act of noticing, I did say that it is not a random act, it is not a split-second thing. It actually describes who you are and what interests you and what seems odd to you that makes you ask questions and then leads to curiosity. Let me now tell you a little story about this act of noticing. If you were a person like Einstein or if you were Steve Jobs, their way of noticing would be at a different level because it all boils down to the kind of people we are, the kind of deep interest we have, the kind of drive that we have. So when a person at that level notices something, it's something quite profound. But if ordinary people like us notice, it's because we have a lot of passion for it, we have hobbies, we have interest in it. And that would lead, depends on where it leads to, depends on how important that noticing is all about. Let's share a story about where the act of noticing, curiosity, and the power of observation can lead to. This is a story of Eiji Nakatsu. He's a Japanese guy and he works for the Japanese railways. And you know, the Japanese railways are very famous for their trains. They built the world's fastest trains. But how did they get there? How did they make the world's fastest trains? It hasn't been an easy journey, but it has been people like Eiji Nakatsu who have made it better and faster. But the bullet trains faced a very serious problem with noise pollution. You see, these bullet trains connect city to city in the fastest way, but they also pass through many tunnels. And as they pass through tunnels, they create a sonic boom because it's passing through from open space to enclosed space and back to open space. And the noise comes forward from the trains and passes through and creates what we call a sonic boom. And it is very disturbing to residents a few kilometers away because it sometimes breaks windows, it hurts children, it wakes them up, and this was a problem for the Japanese government. So somebody like Eiji Nakatsu, he's an engineer, he had to deal with it. And do you know how he dealt with it? Eiji Nakatsu was not just an engineer, he was also a bird watcher. And he took this problem to his birds because he notices a lot of things and he knew the problem was how do you solve the passing of from one medium to another, which is an enclosed space into an open space. And he found the answer with his kingfisher. You see, the kingfisher, when it passes from open air into water and comes out again, it makes very little splash. It moves very smoothly. It transits very smoothly. And Nakatsu saw that. And he took that and they examined it and they did their research. And from there, they then they changed the format of the train and copied the kingfisher's beak and put it on the train in the front part. So when the train passed through from open space to enclosed space back to open space, it was a smooth transition. The noise pollution was very much reduced. And that comes from totally different ideas. You know, this guy is an engineer, this is a train, and the answer came from a bird. You see how different people, when they follow their interests, when they follow their passion, they are able to connect dots and find a solution to something else, some other problem. And this is what happens in this land called creativity. You live in it, I live in it, and how we make use of it is quite different from personalities like Eiji Nakatsu or Steve Jobs or Einstein. We may not be at that level, but creativity helps us to tackle everyday problems, and that is the ultimate job of creativity. In this land of creativity, it's all about possibilities. Nothing is impossible in our country. So think about it. Write to me about a time that you started to notice something that nobody else noticed, and it led to questions, and you became curious, and you found some answers to some problem. Until we meet again, goodbye.